Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Progress DataDirect webinar, Ask Me Anything, Data Access for BI and Analytics. So let's start by quickly introducing today's panelists. My name is Todd Wright. I'm a Senior Product Marketing Manager for Progress DataDirect, and I'll be today's moderator for the webcast. I am joined by our speakers, Abhijit Kulkarni and Kylie Miller. Abhijit is a product manager with over 5 years of experience in product management of data connectivity solutions and a total of 15 plus years experience of data connectivity product development at Progress DataDirect. Kylie Miller is a principal systems engineer for Progress DataDirect. She has been with Progress for over 20 years. She is focused on delivering high performance data access and integration to the critical data needed for exceptional business success. I'll turn it over to Abhijit to start the presentation. And Abhijit, it is all yours.
Thanks, Todd, for that introduction. So let's move on. So for today's, I will go with a quick presentation. And for that presentation, I want to touch upon a few topics like we are talking about BI analytics, right? So what BI analytics tools we are talking about, what are those, what's the scenario looks there, right? So we will talk about that. What are the challenges while working with BI and analytics tools and this entire data connectivity with BI analytics tool domain? Where is the data, right? What are all locations where that data can be present, and how we as a Progress DataDirect can help in this entire picture, right? So let's begin. So suppose there is some data which is on premise, right? Like your SQL Server, Oracle, some DB2 legacy data, right? All those are in your on-premise data sources, whereas some of the data which is in your new age cloud computing, like your Salesforce, Eloqua, Marketo, and all that, right? So some of that data lives in premise, some of that data lives in cloud. Now you want to use that data to somehow build a report, right? Which you can view and use the reporting data to make some business critical decisions, take some actions, and all that, right? So the BI analytics is completely journey from this data, which is stored in cloud and on-premise, to this report. One piece of that puzzle we already know is BI analytics tool, right? Which will help us generate this report. Now the main critical part comes into picture, like how this data will get into your BI tool to generate the report that you want, right? Which is really actionable and which is really moves the needle on your business. So this data connectivity piece could be really challenging, and that's where Progress DataDirect comes in to help you. So let's focus more about these BI and analytics tool. So if you are like most, right, these would be your choices. This is the Magic Quadrant by Gartner, released in February 2021. So if you look at Microsoft is leading this way with their Excel and Power BI tools, closely followed by Tableau. But when I see into this Magic Quadrant, I see like the space is really crowded with a lot of good tools, and Progress DataDirect works with most of these tools with the standard connectivity. So that's a good news for us. So we have done a similar survey with our customer base in 2020. And if you look at this chart as well, you see Excel, Power BI is leading that way, just like the Gartner's Magic Quadrant, followed by Tableau. And there are a lot of other tools in those crowded spaces we support and also popular with our customer base. So now we know about the tools, and we see like Progress DataDirect has a really wide connectivity spectrum for these BI analytics tools, right? But what are the most common challenges working with these projects? So this is the part which we are going to focus on to understand what are those real challenges are. So when we ask the same question to our customer base, right, we get some of very common answers. The first one is lack of inbuilt connectivity. Right, this BI and analytics tool comes with some of the inbuilt connectors to few popular data sources, but like with current data environment that most of the enterprises and companies have, like the data is really widespread and it's across multiple data sources. So having the native or inbuilt connectivity in your BI tool to all the data that you want to pull is like a very difficult scenario nowadays. So lack of inbuilt connectivity is one of the major challenge that our customer face to get data into BI analytics tool. The second problem is every data source supports its own authentication methods and identity services, right? So having a uniform identity across multiple data sources is really challenged. Many customers or enterprises want their corporate identity to be used for authentication for that access to all these data sources, but that's not currently possible with widespread of data sources and their own ways of authenticating users. The third and another important point is how your data gets exposed. Currently, with inbuilt connectors or standard connectors, the entire data of your data source get exposed to be an analytics tool. And if your data source is not role aware, right, or it do not have like a role based or column based access validation for that authentication, right, like all the data is exposed to all the users, which certainly not a scenario that most of the enterprises want. The next one is installing and managing like a multiple required softwares, right? If you are connecting to 10 different data sources, that probably means installing 10 different connectivity solutions and managing them and maintaining them across your multiple deployments. That could be really painful. Another one, especially true with the API-based data sources like Salesforce or Marketo or like Stripe, right? Or so any of these API data sources, because those are cloud hosted and exposed through APIs, they are really dynamic in nature. Their APIs and schema can change with their very frequent releases. And if your applications or a BI tool are directly consuming those APIs, it could be really fatal for your production deployments if there is a API or schema change that you are really not expecting. The next one is when your cloud, the BI tool is hosted on cloud, making connecting those BI tools on cloud to your on-premise data could be really challenging. Usually that means creating holes in your firewall to expose your on-premise data source ports to BI tool, or that could also mean using some VPN solution which has its own challenges. And the last one, but definitely not the least, is lack of auditing, right? It's really very hard in that scenario to get understanding of who's accessing what data, when they accessed, how long they are accessing, right? All those typical auditing questions, it's really hard to get answered in typical BI analytics tool scenario. So these are a few of the top challenges that we are hearing from our customers. So let's look into how Progress DataDirect can help in solving those challenges. So the first one is lack of inbuilt connectivity. Using the standard-based connectors, Progress DataDirect can extend the connectivity options of your favorite BI and analytics tool by multifold. Currently, we have 70 plus connectors available. Also, our autonomous REST connector, which can connect to any of the REST-based data sources, right? The options are limitless. So the integration of DataDirect products with your favorite BI tool can actually help you widespread your connectivity options. So the lack of inbuilt connectivity doesn't remain a problem. Our products can help you sort of implement the role-based and access-based security. For example, hybrid data pipeline with his OData schema map can help you select which objects, tables, and columns that you want to expose through a particular data source, like for a set of users, and you can create another model for another set of users. That way you can choose which data is exposed to what users, and that way you can solve these exposing sensitive private information problem with your BI project. Again, with our hybrid data pipeline project, you can get widespread, like multiple data source connectivity using a single ODBC or JDBC connector, right? That way you do not have to install and manage multiple connectivity solutions to get to all the data sources that you want to pull into your report, right? Just having a single connector to our product would help you solve that problem. Also, our hybrid data pipeline product helps you define a fixed model exposed to your BI and analytic tool. That way, any change in the API or schema, right, you can stay protected. You can build it out, test those schema changes and API changes on your development instance. And then once you are sure about its working, then you can move it to the production. So that way, with our products, you can do dev, test, and prod transitions of your models that help you safeguard your BI and analytics tool from these dynamic changes of APIs and schema. Again, while accessing the on-premise data from cloud BI tools, Hybrid Data Pipeline has an innovative technology which helps you access the on-premise data without creating any holes in the firewall, as well as not using any less secure or questionable VPN solutions, right? So that's where also we can help you. Hybrid Data Pipeline has its own auditing, so you will know who's accessing, what it's getting accessed, and with, again, the pluggable authentication mechanism of our Hybrid Data Pipeline product can help you implement your corporate identity across all the data sources that you are connecting through that product. So Hybrid Data Pipeline is a data access platform which can help you connect to multiple data sources using a single connector on your BI tool side. So we are able to solve these problems, but where that data could reside. So if you look at where is your data, it could be anywhere, and we are well prepared for that. Like I said, we have 75 plus pre-built connectors in our kitty to help you get your data into your favorite BI tool. So you don't have to worry about what's inbuilt in which BI tool, right? Based on your technical and business reasons, you can choose the right BI tool for that use case, and then you can trust on DataDirect to get your data into that BI tool, right? And if you are not able to see your connector in that 75 plus data sources that we have, don't worry, right? So in last 90 days alone, we have added 20 plus GA connectors, right? And we have no plans to slow down. So you can definitely look forward to get your favorite connector into our kitty pretty soon. And again, like if that also doesn't happen, the Hybrid Data Pipeline can easily plug in any other existing standard-based JDBC connector into its kitty. So you are covered that way as well. So that's about how Progress Data Direct can help you solve your BI analytics problems. And now over to Kylie to give us a quick demo. Kylie?
Thank you, Abhijit. Today I will be showing two demos. The first showing ODBC connectivity using our autonomous REST connector, along with Power BI and connecting to a REST endpoint. And I will also show our Hybrid Data Pipeline product to achieve OData connectivity to that same REST endpoint. When you install our autonomous REST connector for ODBC, and you go to the Start Program window, it will create and open our user interface in order to create a configuration file. Our autonomous REST connector uses a REST configuration file in order to access that backend API. And that file is just a JSON document, and it determines how the data can be formed into a relational model so it can be used with your traditional BI tools using ODBC or JDBC connectivity. The product will sample the response from any REST API that we can consume and then turns that into a relational data model. And as I said, we provide this user interface here to help you build that configuration file, or you can bring in a recipe that we have pre-built, kind of a template that we've pre-built for you to various sources, and some of those sources that Abhijit mentioned, such as AHA, Jira, Twitter, some of the beta sources that we support, GitHub, and HubSpot, and coming soon, such as PayPal. For today's presentation or demo, I'll show the Open Brewery API. And if you click this, it will automatically bring in that recipe that we have pre-built for you. And Open Brewery is a public API that anybody can access. This is their website, Open Brewery Database. Their projects are available on GitHub. And if you go to List Breweries here on the left, you'll see this is the base URL that we can use with the driver in order to access that REST endpoint. So if I go back to the user interface here, the host name or the base URL has already been brought in for me, showing that Open Brewery URL. And the only other thing I need to do here for authentication, we do support multiple authentication methods with Autonomous REST Connector, such as OAuth, bearer token. We also support custom authentication, but for this brewery API, it does not require authentication, so I will just choose none here. Next, when you go to configure endpoints, when you are connecting to your own API, you would put in the endpoint here along with the table name, and at that point you can hit send and it will sample that REST endpoint and bring back the endpoint here on the left-hand side. Because we are using that template, it brought it in for us automatically, so it found the brewery's endpoint. And if I expand that, and it's already been formed into that relational model of rows and columns, so it's showing the column names that are available to us within that endpoint. And if I click on breweries, it will automatically validate that data in real time within this UI as well and show you that the SQL view here and also that JSON view if needed. And with this, you can also modify that JSON file if there's anything that is not quite right. For example, if I go to this, you can go to modify attribute. This is set to primary key. I'm going to uncheck that. I will make this one the primary key instead and change this to change the data type. So it's updating that model for me automatically. Everything is how I want it to be now. You can even create or add your own query parameters for that backend API if needed, include pagination. All this has already been done for me because of that the template that I uploaded. So once I have everything here, it creates the connection string, whether you're using a DSN-less connection string. If I were using JDBC, it would have the JDBC URL here, or you can go ahead and download that REST configuration file and use that when creating your ODBC connection. I will open that here, and it's created that Open Brewery API REST file or JSON file for me. So now if I go to the ODBC administrator and create a data source to the Autonomous REST connector, and it's opening the configuration manager now to create that data source. And you have to give it a data source name. And the only other thing here that you need to add is the location of the REST configuration file that was created. So I'm going to copy that location, put it in here, and add that REST file name. And since this API does not have authentication, I will leave that to none. And that is all I need to do. And save that. Now it's created that data source name for me. If I go back to the ODBC administrator, it's created that Ado Brewery's data source for me. So now you can go to your favorite BI tool of choice. I will use Power BI and go to get that data. And you can select Other and ODBC and Connect. And I will choose that Ado Brewery's data source that I created in the ODBC administrator. And since this data source does not have authentication, I will choose Default or Custom. And it will read that data source and bring back the data for me. There it is loading, and I will load it in here. So this is going to bring back several thousand rows from that brewery's API. And once it completes loading, it will add the information here on the right-hand side. And there I have access to my brewery's data. Let me go ahead and add a couple of those in here. I'm going to add it as a map. Let me add the name of the brewery, the city it's located in, the state, and the type of brewery. And let me change this and change the name just so it makes a little more sense in here. You can rename the field names. And okay, and then I'll change this. And now it will bring back the visual for the breweries API. You'll see this is for worldwide. There's several breweries here in London, several in Alaska. I'll scroll in here a little bit closer to the US. And for the bubbles, it gives me the information that's available. Obviously, this is only the information that is available in that API, but it gives you the type of brewery it is. Here's Springfield, Missouri, White River Brewing. And this is your visual for that brewery API. With Power BI, it gives you the ability of bringing in the data two different ways. You can import the data, which is what we just did, and it will load that data into memory, and the user can only refresh that data once a day. They also give you the ability of using direct query. It gives you the results that are needed in real time, and you can configure refreshes for the data to refresh every 15 minutes, every hour, every couple of hours, but it's a little bit more flexibility of how current that data is. In order to use direct query, they require you to use what's called a custom connector. There are several of our ODBC drivers that we provide the custom connector for. Autonomous REST Connector is one of them. We do support custom connector with our Hive and Greenplum and other drivers as well. But if you navigate, if you go to the installation of the ODBC driver, and we provide the Power BI custom connector for you in there. You just need to incorporate that into your Power BI application, which we have documentation on how to do that. So if you use the custom connector to use direct query, I'm going to create another report here. And when I select the product, instead of using ODBC, I will use the AutoRest connector, the custom connector. And I will put in the same data source name and choose direct query instead of import. Now it's bringing back the data the same way it did before. Select breweries and load, and I will do everything the same as last time. All right, and I'll just select a couple of these here again. And whoops. So now it'll bring back that data. And there the data has been returned. And then I can save this report. And once that is saved, I can then publish this report to my Power BI in the cloud. And Power BI in the cloud is where you can issue those that refresh intervals. So I'll save it in my workspace in the cloud. And once that's done, I can open it within Power BI, and the same report will open here for anyone. You can send the link for anyone to access that report. And there the report has been brought in here into Power BI Cloud. And then you can go to that data set and this is where you can configure the refresh, whether you have 1 hour, every 15 minutes, daily, weekly. But that is Power BI and using the Autonomous REST Connector. The other demo I would like to show real quick is using our hybrid data pipeline with OData connectivity. As Avadhoot mentioned, hybrid data pipeline can give you the ability to secure your data sources behind your corporate authentication, can give you the ability to access on-prem data sources behind a firewall, and also gives you the ability to decide which tables and columns you want to expose to your end users. You can also share the data source to on-prem sources or cloud-based sources, or even a REST API by providing a single ODBC or JDBC driver. You don't even have to share a driver, the ODBC or JDBC driver, and you can provide an OData endpoint to any of those sources. So I'm quickly going to show you how to achieve OData connectivity to that same REST API that we used in the last demo. So if I click on New Data Sources here, these are the sources that we support out of the box today with Hybrid Data Pipeline. And all of these sources you can connect to using a single ODBC driver or JDBC driver or OData endpoint. We also support the ability of bringing your own JDBC driver for use within Hybrid Data Pipeline, or you can also use our, we've recently incorporated our Autonomous REST connector for use within Hybrid Data Pipeline as well. I will click on that and give it a name. And I'm going to use that same endpoint that we used in the last sample right here and import that, and it automatically brought that data in. And if I click on Generate Configuration, this is that same JSON REST file that was generated before. So you can see the data types and column names. You can even edit this file if there's anything in here that you want to change or update. And now if I click on the OData tab, I can configure my schema map to connect to that REST endpoint. So I will select Auto REST, and I want to remove the configuration because we just want the breweries information. So here's all the column names that we have access to. You can remove the column names if you don't want some of these for your end users to have access to, and save that mapping. And once that is done, you can save the data source, and it's automatically, the mapping was already created for me for that OData map. So I can click on that. This is my URI that I can use with any application that supports OData. I'll quickly show you, you may have noticed in one of Abhitut's slides that Excel is still even one of the number BI tools of choice that customers are using. So I'm going to use Excel because you can use our ODBC driver or OData with Excel. If I go to Data and Get Data from other sources and select OData, you can just put in that OData URL, hit OK, and it will bring back that list of brewery right there. Load that data in. And there you go. And everything's brought back into Excel. And that's all for my demo today. So I will send it back over to Todd.
I appreciate it. Guys, both of you, that was really great. Now for the portion, looks like we have several minutes to do this, the question and answer portion. If you two don't mind for this portion, if you could put your cameras on just so everyone can see you while we go through the questions, that would be highly appreciated. Looks like we already have 6 in the queue, so that's great. All right, let's dive right into the questions here. This is a question we get a lot, not only on webinars, but within direct sales engagements. And it is, how technical do my people need to be to use your product? They have been trained to use our BI tools. Can they, with a relative amount of training or documentation, can they also use DataDirect? And either one of you can jump in as you like.
I can go ahead and take that one. So if you're familiar with your BI tool and using a traditional or an ODBC driver to a relational source, very similar, it's the exact same way you would use the Autonomous REST connector ODBC driver or JDBC driver with your BI tool. When it comes to configuring the model to connect to your REST API, you will need to be a little more technical and know that backend REST API. And if you're using our own model, we do have documentation in there for each of the models that we have created. But if you're connecting to your own REST API, you will have to have knowledge of that to build it. But once the configuration file is built and created and incorporated within the Autonomous REST ODBC or JDBC driver, then again, it's just as if you were using a relational ODBC driver with that tool.
Yeah, just to make small addition there. Sorry. So when you are working with BI project, there are two personas. One who are just interested in report, like the BI users. Probably they are not technical and they are not the right people to configure our product with your BI tools. But the BI developers who are actually trained to do that, they will be pretty much familiar with ODBC, OData, and all these concepts and how to integrate that with BI tools.
Okay, great. Appreciate it, both of you. We have another one here. How can our users connect to Progress database on-premise, which is also used for production workloads? I'm assuming Progress DataDirect was meant within that question, but is that something you guys want to tackle, or?
Right. So if it's still BI use case, right, it's a read-only use case. So you can still configure your the ODBC through ODBC driver or by exposing your APL knowledge with PSOE REST API services, and then configure Arc to convert that to ODBC or OData using HTTP. So you can always configure your BI tool to connect to your live production database, because most of that use case will be read only, so it will not change your data. If you are worried about the performance impact, right, in that case, you probably need to do some, and if your BI use case is really heavy, right, then you might want to consider data replication or moving that data into some selective data into some other database or data source before you run your BI load on that. So it depends on the use case, but that's probably will cover it.
Okay, great. We have another question here. I really like this question because it's so relevant to what organizations are doing these days. As we all know, organizations really aren't set on one particular BI tool or one analytics provider. They have multiple ones. So within this question, it says, we use multiple BI tools at our company. Does DataDirect licensing allow for such a thing?
Yes, absolutely. We can do custom licensing for your BI tools. We've also worked with customers that have full server farms and multiple BI tools. So we can work with you if there's a custom price or whatever it may be. We can work with you to come up with a pricing model for multiple tools, and we can certainly reach out to you or you to our sales team so we can discuss that further.
Okay. That was pretty straightforward. Anything to add to that one?
No, I don't have anything to add on. It was a great answer, Kylie. Thanks.
Okay. Okay. Here's another one. Here's another one that's really relevant to the environment that organizations worldwide are facing. We deal with a lot of regulated data. Does DataDirect provide access permissions based on who is allowed to access which data?
Yeah, I can take that. So there are multiple solutions that Progress DataDirect can provide you in this regard, right? One was we can implement something with HTTP where you can choose different data sources that exposes limited set of your objects and fields or table and columns, we can say, right, to define for a particular role, and then expose those data source only for those particular users or roles, right? That way you can control. If you want much more control over which role in which region has access to what data, what operations, and all that, right? You can consider our open access SDK product, which allows you to implement a data access interceptor between the clients and your data. And that way you get much more control about adding a custom authentication, adding your custom business logic on which fields should be exposed, should be hidden, should be encrypted, decrypted, and all that. So so we will have multiple solutions to sort of cater to that problem, and you should definitely reach out to us to discuss those.
All right, thanks again. It's a good question here. Is our organization has different needs beyond BI, business intelligence. Do you work with any use cases beyond just business intelligence, or is that what organizations are really using DataDirect for?
Yeah, I can take that again. BI is one of the primary use case, but what DataDirect is providing you is a point-to-point connectivity solution, right? Connecting your data source to anything where your data needs to be consumed. We are standard-based connectivity platform. So be it BI tool where it's a reporting need to pull your data, if it's data migration or moving job, right? The ETL tools those support standard-based connectivity to move your data from one source to another, and we can play at both end while pulling for the pulling data as well as inserting that data. There is also use cases where the transactional applications that customer sort of code, they use standard-based connectivity to connect to their data to store that data, insert, update, delete, all those operations. So what we offer is connectivity to your data. BI is one use case, but the use cases are remains outside BI as well.
Okay, great. And Kylie, I know that you're in the field a lot. You probably see a lot of organizations looking to DataDirect beyond just BI.
Yes, absolutely. And that, what Abhijit just mentioned, I wanted to touch on as well. Autonomous REST Connector is also, we support read, write, update, insert support for that backend API if it supports it. So that's something fairly new to the product, the writing capabilities and update capabilities. It does, if the model that we have created already does not support it, there's just a couple lines of code that we need to put in there to add that support. But that is a new feature to the product. But yes, we see lots of different applications, not just BI, but anything that's, as Abhijit said, standards-based connectivity. We do pride ourselves in standards-based connectivity, so anything that supports the JDBC, ODBC driver, or OData.
All right. Well, the lightning round continues with another question. Which products are needed to implement a connection from a Progress database to Power BI?
Power BI supports ODBC, so you could use our OpenEdge ODBC driver within Power BI. We support, I believe it's 10 and higher with our OpenEdge ODBC driver. The query, so it would be an import only through that ODBC connection within Power BI. But yes, it would use our ODBC driver.
Yeah, to add to that, if you want to expose your OpenEdge data along with your ABL business logic, right, then you can convert that to a REST service using PassOE and then use our REST API, the auto REST connector to convert that to ODBC again into Power BI. So yeah.
Okay, we just had another question come in. Could we use multiple REST connectors that connect to separate sources like OpenEdge, SQL, etc., to bring them into one Power BI report to be analyzed together? It's a good question.
Trying to think through that real quick.
And a tough question.
To have one, I know we can do that with Hybrid Data Pipeline using a, trying to remember what it's called, to bring multiple tables together, multiple sources together. Within just the Autonomous REST connector, I don't believe you can do that.
Yeah, so I don't believe it can be done in Autonomous REST connector. It will be one connection, one connector for one service at a time.
Right.
What I'm not completely sure about it, once you pull that data into Power BI, does Power BI have any capability to work across the data sources? I'm not 100% sure of that answer, but I believe even there you will sort of working with one connection at a time right? So usually people implement data warehouses or data lake to solve such problems where data will come from multiple sources into a single place and then consumed, or there will be a data virtualization layer which sort of maps backend data into a single structure, and then you can query that data federated view from your BI tool to get the integrated data. So either implementing data warehouse or data virtualization is usually the technique people use to build reports which are based on multiple data sources.
Okay. And the great thing about webinars, both the you and the person that asked this question, we can always get back with you after this webinar for a more detailed answer and see how we can be of help. Let me see if we have any more questions here. I'll look in the queue one more time. And I believe that was the final question, unless there's anyone on the line that still wants to ask Abhut or Kylie any questions. I'll give a pause for about 5 seconds and see if anything comes through. If not, we'll do final thoughts. All right, that's it. You two were let off fairly easy today. I'll start with you, Kylie. Any lasting thoughts? Nothing profound needs to be said. Just what our audience might want to have as their takeaway from this, and what DataDirect might be able to do to help in the BI space.
Yeah, I guess the only thing I will say, we do provide free evaluation, download evaluation from our website, so you can go out there at any time and download the product. We also provide technical support through our sales engineer team, myself and a team that can help you with any questions, technical or otherwise, during the evaluation. So we are here to help.
Yeah, appreciate it. And Abhut, we'll end with you.
No, I'm excited to see the interest that the topics of BI and data connectivity continues to attract, right? I believe this is an important piece, right, when organizations are moving toward data-driven decision making, right? How you can get most out of your data that you already have from your customers, from your business operations, and use that effectively to make the right decision, right? Is now it's not even a something that sets you apart, but it's business necessity today. And it's great to see that it's attracting a lot of interest, and we have such a good audience here to sort of learn more about that. So great to see this.
Completely agree. With that, this concludes the webinar. I appreciate both of you coming on today and giving a presentation and answering a lot of questions. I think our audience greatly appreciates it well. To everyone that joined this webinar, we appreciate your time and learning a little bit more about DataDirect. As always, we'll be in touch with any follow-up questions you may have. And with all that said, this concludes the webinar. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.